Well, the First World War also had a huge impact on Iraq, which was part of the Ottoman Empire before the post-war boundaries were drawn. For more on this, let's speak now to historian and author of The Modern History of Iraq, Ibrahim al-Marashi. Thank you so much for coming on the show. First off, when we're talking about World War I in the Middle East, we hear a lot about the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a lot about the Balfour Declaration, but you believe that the war meant that Middle Easterners' identity was at stake, the search for identity. What do you mean by that?
That's correct. Up until World War I, most people that today we would call Arabs, or let's say those who were inhabiting Iraq, simply thought of themselves as subjects of the Ottoman Empire and had local affiliations to their town or city. When the guns fell silent, for the first time, the Ottoman Empire now had relinquished control over their lands. And you have now a swirling of various identities that they could adopt, whether it was a general Arab nationalism, or trying to forge some kind of loyalty to this entity called Iraq that came into being after the ceasefire.
How do you think, I want to fast forward to today, although we are going to round back again. How do you think Iraqi nationalism or patriotism is at today? I mean, if you think about it, the country hasn't been around in its current state for that long. Do you think most Iraqis would identify as being Iraqi first or Arab first or perhaps even Muslim first? And does that hark back to the First World War?
So I don't think these categories are mutually exclusive. You could have multiple identities in Iraq, and sometimes your identities shift over time. One case would be my grandfather, who was in this town of Najaf during the ceasefire. He would have thought himself as a subject of the Ottoman Empire, not necessarily as an Arab, but as a Muslim. What forged, I guess, his connection to Iraq is the same event that kind of created a sense of Iraqiness. Anti-British sentiment that led to revolt against the British in 1920. At that time, the identity of Iraq was formed by what we are opposed to. And it's been a project since then. It hasn't been exclusively Arab or exclusively Iraqi. It's been a fluid project. It's hard to gauge whether it's weak or strong because people's identities shift, but definitely for all the travails and hardships this land has gone through, I think there is some kind of common sense of being an Iraqi.
I just think it's an interesting question post-conflict with these countries which are actually quite young to think about those ideas of identity. But let's come back. Let's talk about the Arab revolt, because it's often cited as being drummed up by the British, but you say that's not the case. Can you explain?
The Arab revolt gets a lot of attention in our historical memory thanks to, Lawrence of Arabia. But if you look at the historical record, the Arab revolt was supposed to get the soldiers and officers of Arab origin in the Ottoman army to defect to the British cause. And when you look at the documents, even the British admitted inadvertently, when you look at the documents, let's say if they had captured 130 Ottoman troops of Arab origin and said, we'll give you your freedom if you join the Arab revolt. Only maybe 30 out of that 100, for example, decided to join. So there's either two things happening. Those Arab soldiers are still loyal to the empire, or they just didn't want to fight again. And then when Iraq was formed, so you have to realize what happens after World War I is you have a pool of demobilized Ottoman soldiers. Some stay and fight with Ataturk's army. A lot of the ones of Arab origins go back to their hometowns, which would become the countries of Syria and Iraq. And out of 600, let's say, Ottoman officers that has served in the Ottoman army in Iraq, if you looked at the numbers, 100 of those Ottoman officers defected to the British cause. But about 500 stayed loyal to the Ottoman Empire to its very end, which suggests was that even though the British were able to inspire some Arabs to revolt, a good number of them still didn't kind of conceive themselves as Arabs, and they stayed loyal to the Ottoman Empire to the end.